In today's episode, I'm going to show you everything you need to know about citrus fertilization and also when is the best time to fertilize them. So I have a few citrus right here. We have oranges, lemons, I have some limes, kumquats. I have a lot of kumquats actually. Maybe a few pomelo left, and mandarin, tangerine, all kinds. Here in Arizona, citrus grows like weeds. They are very easy to grow in our area. Now, I know a lot of you watching right now, you probably grow your citrus in containers, and you are wondering what is the best fertilizer for your citrus and when is the best time to fertilize them. So let's go ahead and get started with when is the best time to fertilize them. Now, there are two ways you can actually fertilize your citrus. The first one is going to be, you can set a schedule and fertilizing every year around the same time, or you can look at your trees. So let's go ahead and start with the first one, putting your trees on a feeding schedule. Now that will depend on how often you water your plants. So if you have your citrus in a container, you are most likely going to be watering very often. Here in my area, my daily temperatures right now are over 100 degrees. So what that means is these containers right here are drying 50% twice a day. So guess what? If we follow the 50% rule, which I explain in another video in details, that means I'm watering these trees twice a day because they're drying out on me twice a day, 50%. Very easy rule to follow during the growing season. In the winter time, you follow the 75% rule. Another thing you got to keep in mind is the citrus right now are actively growing. So they are eating just like you. When you go on a run for a few miles, you come back home, you are very thirsty and you probably get hungry too, right? Same thing with plants. They are actively growing. When are you going to fertilizing if you want to set your schedule? So let's say you just got your citrus. You brought it home and you don't know if you need to fertilize it or not. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at it. Do you have a lot of new leaves? If you do, the nursery probably already fertilized the plant that you have and you don't need to do anything. Now let's say you have your citrus for a little while and you're not noticing any new growth, and you know it's not a water issue, you know it's not the middle of the winter, and you know for sure 100% your tree is supposed to be growing right now. So at that point, what you can do is you can go ahead and start feeding your plant and setting it on a feeding schedule. So what I do here is I feed them most times once I start seeing new growth at the beginning of the season. When the night temperatures are warming up, usually around 60-70 degrees, I start seeing new leaves, I see new flowers, and I feed my plants. And that is option number one. Now, how often are you gonna feed them? Well, that depends on what kind of fertilizer you use. The fertilizer that I use here for most of our container plants, it's a slow release fertilizer. It's this one right here. The numbers, the NPK is irrelevant. Don't even pay attention to that, because if you do, you're gonna get confused and you're gonna buy into all the sales gimmicks that you see everywhere online, and your plants are going to suffer if you start emphasizing on the numbers. If you're gonna use a synthetic fertilizer, the only thing that I recommend you to do is get a fertilizer that has a slow release, like this one right here. This one is pelletized, so the fertilizer is inside the pellets. Now, the way I fertilize my plants is you get a handful, it comes with a scoop, and the bag will usually tell you how much to put in the containers, and then you just throw it in there and you're done. Every time you fertilize, that fertilizer will actually get released into the potting mix a little bit at a time every single time you water, because anything that mixes with water, your plant is able to eat. And this fertilizer is also heat activated, meaning it's not supposed to release fertilizer when the temperatures are cold. I'm not sure how accurate that is, so I don't buy into it, and that's why I don't fertilize my plants in the winter time, because they're not growing anyway. So I don't want to waste fertilizer. Now, this fertilizer right here is a slow release, and here in Arizona, remember I'm watering twice a day right now, I only fertilizing once a year. And my citrus grow great, they bear fruit, and I don't have any issues at all. So as long as your plants are growing and giving you fruits, it's okay. So once a year for me here in Arizona. Now let's say you live somewhere else. I don't know where. The temperatures are gonna be hotter than my area, or where you're gonna be watering more often than I do here. But let's say you do. So the more you water your plants, the more you are going to be leaching the food away from your plant, because whatever mixes with water is what your plant eats. So if you water constantly, you're always flushing all the food away from the root ball of your plant. You're leaching all the nutrients away from it. So you may have to fertilize more often. But that's the reason why I like the slow release fertilizer, simply because I just put it in the container and my plant gets fed every single time that I water, just a tiny bit, and that's how you want it. You will not be able to burn your plants. I have not killed a single plant from over fertilizing it. Not a single one out of thousands of plants that I have probably killed unintentionally, just learning, because nobody taught me everything that I teach you on every single video that I put out, guys. Everything that I put out there is personal experience and some common sense. But that's the reason why I like that fertilizer. If it's a slow release, extremely hard to overdo it. Just follow the instructions. I lost a little scoop that comes with it, but normally for a 3 or a 5 gallon or even a 7 gallon container, all you need is about half a scoop, which I've been doing this for a little while, so normally I can just tell how much that is. Now let's say you have some other fertilizer that is not slow release. If you have a few plants, that's easier to do. So the way you're gonna do that is you're gonna read the directions, which is usually on the bag somewhere, and then in the bag it's gonna tell you, you know, quarter of a scoop. It's gonna tell you, you know, half a scoop. Sometimes it's gonna go by weight. So whatever the instructions tell you, what you are going to do is you're gonna cut it in half to a quarter. So what that means is, if the instructions say you need to use a half a scoop, whatever scoop it comes with, for whatever surface area, then what you're gonna do is you're gonna use a quarter of a scoop. Now the reason I recommend to do that, especially with instant release fertilizers, is if you put your fertilizer in the container, you water it in, that fertilizer will dissolve in the water immediately, and then your plant will start eating it immediately. The problem with those fertilizers is it releases everything at once, and your plant does not know when to stop eating it. So what happens is it keeps eating, and then it blows up. So just like you would if you kept eating when you're full. Plants do not know when they're full, because in nature, food does not happen in abundance like that naturally. But yeah, just, you know, cut the dosage to half to a quarter, and then just fertilize your plants if you're gonna use any other fertilizer that is not slow release. If you want to go the organic way, I have another video specifically talking about how to fertilize your container plants organically. It's a little more labor intensive, and I don't do it personally simply because I have hundreds and hundreds of plants, and I don't have the labor to help me fertilize my plants on a weekly basis if I'm gonna do it the organic way. And if I had to do that, then I will have to raise my prices, and then obviously people are not gonna want to pay it. So this is the best way to do it, and if you have container plants. That brings us to option number 2, and that is you need to pay attention to your plants, and you need to look for a few signs which I'm about to show you. So the other way to know when to fertilize your plants is by simply looking at them. It's going to be very difficult for you to do that, especially if you only have a few plants or if you have just started growing them. When you spend time with plants, you get to know them, and the more time you spend with them, you will get to notice changes and needs your plants are trying to tell you. Now, my plants that you see in front of me, I have not fertilized in about a year and a half. Yes, I'm being lazy. I forgot. I put it off. It is what it is. I know these plants are overdue to get fed. Now, one of the signs that I've noticed immediately for the past at least 3 months is they have not been growing as fast as they normally do. I know 100% it's not a water issue because they're getting the same amount of water, the same everything they did last year and the year before and the year before when they used to grow way faster. They get in the same amount of sunlight. Everything is the same. The only thing that is not the same is I was lazy and I did not feed them. Some of the plants are still flushing slowly. They're still growing. But I've noticed a lot of the plants are showing the main sign that most plants are going to show you when they need food. And that is yellowing of the leaves. Now, there are many different reasons why your leaves are going to turn yellow. I have another video on citrus, specifically why, the main reasons actually why your leaves are going to turn yellow. But one of those reasons is going to be they need food. The reason they turn yellow, especially if you start seeing the veins of your leaves, like this one right here, you see how you can see the yellowing throughout the whole leaf, and then you can also see the veins. Well, this is chlorosis right here. There are other conditions that are going to show the same symptoms, but out of growing thousands of citrus over the years, this is the main one. I literally have not seen any other reasons why, in my area at least. Now, what that means is there is hardly any nitrogen in that container, because over the year and a half I've been watering, I've been flushing all the food away from the potting mix to the point where there's hardly any, if any at all, left in that container for the plant to actually eat. So what's happening is my leaves are turning yellow. That condition is called chlorosis. Now, is that going to kill your plant? No, of course not. Does that mean I'm overwatering on my plant? No, it's not. I still have to water this plant twice a day, because if I don't, my plant will be dead in a single day here in Arizona in full sun. It's not overwatering. But I have to water that often because I'm in the desert, it's hot here, and just like you would in full sun, you will drink a lot more water in my area than you would any other state under the shade in lower temperatures. Now, that's an easy fix right there. Now, let's say you don't feed your plant and you let this go. The next thing that's gonna happen, sometimes you may get some dieback. Your smaller branches are gonna start dying back for whatever reason. That's another sign that you need to feed your plants too. And you can see when you have a lot of plants and a lot of them are doing it, you know, you know something's up. Now, if you have 1 or 2 plants, you know, it's hard to tell what the problem is, but that's how I learned, just by watching a bunch of plants all at once, and when they all start acting the same, then you know what's up. Now, let's say I don't feed it. They're just gonna start struggling. They're gonna starve. They're not gonna grow. They're gonna sunburn a lot easier. When the winter comes, they're gonna take more frost damage. When they go dry, they're gonna die a lot faster. It just makes the plant a lot weaker. And eventually your plant will die for any other reason, such as, let's say you forgot to water, and if it was a healthy plant, you know, it may wilt a little bit and you catch it in time, it will come back, no problem. But a plant that's been starving, it'll probably die a lot faster, and that's how you will lose those plants if you don't feed them. Now, that fix right there, it's very easy. All you gotta do is feed your plant. In a few weeks, this over here will go away because I just fertilized my plant, and it will get some food, it will grow, and you'll be fine. That's another way you can actually tell if you need to feed your plants or not. It takes a little more experience, so it's always best to ask somebody if you're not sure, especially if you are new to container growing and citrus. You can go on our social media, Facebook, you can go on our Instagram, post your picture, and I will tell you exactly what is going on if you give me a brief description of your plant and a picture. So remember, I'm always here to help you out. So join us on social media, links below. But anyways, you can ask your friends or somebody else that has been growing citrus longer than you have. But those are the 2 ways you can actually follow in order to fertilize your citrus. One is you can set them on a schedule and feed them every year around the same time, especially during the growing season. You don't want to feed your plant when they're not growing. So it's wasteful to feed your plant in the fall or in the winter time. They're not growing, it doesn't matter. So usually for containers, I like to feed them at the beginning of the season when they are literally starting to grow. Now another way is you can just look at your plant and look for the signs that your plant needs food. And if you stick to a slow release fertilizer, then you will be good to go. I like this because it's so easy to do and fast, and it's just the way to go when you have a lot of plants. If you have a few plants, you can go fancier if you want, but this has been working for me for many years. Now the reason I say do not emphasize on the NPKs, the numbers, is because in my opinion these numbers are a sales gimmick. I do not believe that every single number here your plant is gonna be eating it. Just like you, when you eat food, do you think you are able to absorb every better nutrients that label says in the package of the food you ate it from? No, most of that fertilizer actually gets flushed into the soil. So what's left in that container, who knows what it is? Maybe you have more nitrogen, maybe you have more potassium, maybe you have more phosphorus. Who knows? You know, we can't control that unless you're in a controlled environment, and you know, that gets complicated at that point. Do not emphasize on the numbers. If you're gonna stick to synthetic fertilizers, find something that's slow release and you are good to go. You can buy that brand right here. You can buy another one. I have not found any other ones, so that's the only reason why I buy this one. But yeah, the numbers are irrelevant. Do not worry about it. I got another video coming out in the future where I explain this in more details, and I can tell you this fertilizer here I use on every single plant that we have here at the nursery. We use it on mango trees, mulberry trees, all stone fruits, apples, flowers, hibiscus, silk floss, rainbow eucalyptus, longan, lychee, star fruits, what else? Jelly palms, day palms. We use it on every single tropical plant that we have here at the nursery. We use it on vegetables, we use it on house plants, succulents. 100% of the plants at the nursery we use this fertilizer. And whether the plant flowers, the plant fruits, it doesn't matter. They all grow, they all flower, they all fruit like they're supposed to, and the numbers remain the same. And if you go look online, you know, there's always a specific fertilizer for every single plant. But anyways, as a summary, one way you can actually fertilize your plant is put it on a schedule and fertilize it every single year. If you miss it like I did, just go ahead and do it. Better late than never, right? And second way is by looking at your plant. And if you're not sure, ask people around you. Don't always follow what, you know, some people tell you though, like the yellowing of the leaves always means overwatering. If I stop watering that citrus you saw earlier, it will die in one single day here in full sun. But if you post that picture online, a lot of people are going to tell you that's an overwatering issue. Watering was partly the reason why, but it's because I have to water that often because my plants are drying out so quickly, so it's always flushing the nutrients away from the potting mix. Now, what type of fertilizer to use, that's up to you. You can go with a slow release fertilizer, you can go with an instant release fertilizer, or you can go the organic way, which I have another video coming out in the future where I show you how you can fertilize your plant organically. But anyways, hopefully that helps you out. It answers some of the questions you have about growing your citrus, how to fertilize it, when to fertilize it, how do you know when you even need to fertilize it. So if you have any further questions, don't forget to join us on social media, subscribe, click the bell, like the video, and any other questions, comment below.